Dear believing brothers and sisters, today we are faced with many difficulties and issues affecting our nation beyond all boundaries. So I decided to speak to you about the importance of obeying Wali al-Amr, the ruler, because indeed in his obedience lies many great benefits to us all. And now we have our first call from Brother Ta'i al-Mutawi. Go ahead, Ta'i.
I have committed a major sin, Sheikh Za'atar, and no one can help me but you. Yesterday there was a speech by Wali al-Amr, the ruler, and I fell asleep and missed it. Do I have to offer any expiation for that?
It's because you do not listen and obey. Didn't I tell you that all evil lies in not listening and obeying? The Wali, master and ruler, said. And we have another call from Mrs. Mutia. Go ahead, I'm listening, Sister Mutia.
Sheikh Za'atar, I gave my husband a good beating and took all his money. My Wali was present with me while all of this was happening. Is there any sin in that?
If the master was with you, then of course hitting your husband is perfectly fine. And as far as the money goes, taking it by force is lawful. Lawful. Absolutely lawful.
But Sheikh, what I mean by the Wali who was present with me is the legal guardian who oversaw my marriage. I did not mean the Wali, the supreme ruler.
Any person of authority present with you during this incident makes it permissible, even if it were Sayyid al-Badawi, my dear sister.
And why exactly Sayyid al-Badawi, Sheikh?
Because he is also called a Wali. Why don't we just listen and obey? Isn't your name Mutia, obedient, or what? Oh, obedient brothers and sisters, shall we all go to rolling the dice, taking others' money and getting a proper beating? All right, let's go.
Anyone watching this episode from anywhere on the face of the earth has surely come across Sheikh Za'atar, whether face to face or on some satellite channel. The reason I'm doing this episode again, even though we did a similar one about 5 years ago, is that people tend to forget, and the danger of this movement keeps growing every day. The article in front of you was published in the Times of the Zionist State, and it poses a very legitimate question. Could Madkhalism followers be allies to the Zionist occupying state? And the article states that Madkhalism is an Islamic school more supportive of normalization, even more so than secular and liberal currents themselves. It also states that Madkhalism helps in securing the Zionist state and serves as a counterweight to the political Islamic movement. Because the Madkhali principle of obedience to the ruler is the foundation of the stability of the governments that support the Zionist state. And the article goes on with more despicable claims, worse than what you've just heard. And you'll find these statements in the video description with a link to the article. And as for those who don't even know what Madkhalism or Jamia movement mean, or the reasons why the Zionists love them so much to this extent and even wrote such praises about them, this would be a good opportunity to understand the origins of this movement, so that they could be aware and also warn others about their insidious ideology. The beginning, dear friends, was in the neighboring country of Ethiopia in the year 1931, and with the birth of Muhammad Aman al-Gami, or al-Jami, for those who get upset about the Egyptian pronunciation of the letter Jim. Muhammad was born in Ethiopia and received an Islamic education. He memorized the Quran at a young age, and when he grew a little older, he decided to travel to Saudi Arabia. However, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He had no visa and no money to finance the trip, so he and his friend Abdul Karim decided to take the journey on foot, or as you might call it, an illegal migration. They left Ethiopia for Somalia, and from Somalia they were smuggled by boat to Yemen. And from Yemen, my dear friend, they entered Saudi Arabia, and throughout this whole adventure, he was only 18 years old. The two embarked on this journey in 1949. In Saudi Arabia, specifically in the Nabawi Mosque, he would sit in the scholars' study circles, learning jurisprudence, creed, Quranic interpretation, and other Islamic sciences. This was happening at the same time as he graduated from the College of Sharia in 1960. In fact, he also earned a master's degree in Sharia from the University of Punjab in Pakistan in 1974, and later he earned a PhD from Dar al-Ulum in Cairo in the late 1970s. So, in summary, and to be fair, despite any differences, the man was indeed knowledgeable when it comes to academic qualifications. There is no question about it. Since he is a qualified scholar, what are your qualifications to speak about someone of his stature? No, I'm not here to talk about his knowledge in any way. I'm here to talk about his stance and the dark ideology he laid the foundation for, an ideology that the Zionists are benefiting from today, as you've seen. The important thing is that the late 1970s going into the 1980s was a period of flourishing for Islamic movements in Saudi Arabia, which they used to call the Sahwa, Islamic Awakening. And this Sahwa, the awakening, just from its name, implies that the Ummah had been in a state of heedlessness or deep slumber and was now waking up again. It was waking up through knowledge and ideologies, thinkers, scholars, and initiatives aimed at rescuing the youth from the darkness of ignorance. Among the most well-known sheikhs of that period were Salman al-Uda, Awad al-Qarni, Safar al-Hawali, Nasser al-Omar, and many others. And by the way, all of these names, respectfully, are currently in prison except for maybe one. This man was one of them, their companion at first. But when he saw that things were leading to jail and seizure, he backed out. He went and sold them out at the first stop and jumped on the gravy train. Anyway, he's not important, so let's get back to our topic. When America needed troops for its war in Afghanistan, because at the time it had just come out of World War II and it didn't want to enter into a direct conflict with the Soviet Union, which is present-day Russia. The Americans asked the Saudi regime to give the Islamists a bit more freedom to operate since they were already unhappy about what was happening to their brothers in Afghanistan and were eager to support Muslims everywhere. And that's exactly what Saudi Arabia did at the time. They obeyed the orders of Mama America. And mind you, Saudi Arabia didn't manipulate the sheikhs. No, they just allowed them to do what they already wanted to do. This way, the Saudi regime scored a point with the scholars and scored another point with the Americans. At that time, my dear, Sheikh Mohammed Aman al-Jami, remember we were talking about him a little while ago, he had gotten a position at the Nabawi Mosque and started teaching people their religion. But he also did a little job on the side, you could say, which was reporting to the Saudi security forces about those he disagreed with, whether they were scholars or students, labeling them as a threat to national security. The Saudi law enforcement really appreciated his special snitching abilities, so they went ahead and appointed him as a professor at the Islamic University. And by the way, it wasn't called a university just because it was a community for knowledge, but also because the community of people whom he snitched on there was very large. No, of course, I'm just playing with you, because the number of people Sheikh Al-Jami turned in was more than those in the Islamic University, the Faith University, and even more than those praying Taraweeh, Shaf, and Witr on top. Anyway, my friend, one of Sheikh Al-Jami's most outstanding students was a man named Rabi ibn Hadi al-Madkhali. Sheikh Rabi then followed the exact same path, same foundation in the Islamic University, a PhD, same system, and same curriculum. So he too was a scholar just like his teacher. But as he was from the second generation, he of course had to refine things and add his own personal touch. And so the man went on to compile all and every verse in hadith addressing the matter of obeying the ruler. He gathered all these resources, polished them up, then put a big spotlight on them. Then he presented them as if the entire religion of Islam is all about commands to obey Wali al-Amr, the ruler. You just said that obedience to the ruler is part of the religion. So what are you upset about? No, I'm fine with that and everything, but what I don't like is you telling me that this is the only pillar of religion. And what I also don't like is the twisting and turning around the texts and interpreting them according to your liking. What do you mean by telling me to obey the ruler even if he strikes your back and takes your wealth? Are you telling me that the Prophet, peace be upon him, would command you to live humiliated, stripped of your rights, your will, and your money to top it all? Listen, dear friend, to the logic that the mind can accept, so you could say with full contentment, we hear and we obey.
Even if he takes your wealth and strikes your back, still you should still hear and obey. Some might think it means taking wealth unlawfully, but that is a strange interpretation. The real meaning here is if he rightfully takes your wealth and punishes you, because it's impossible that the Prophet, peace be upon him, would agree to the ruler taking your wealth unjustly. The Prophet actually said, whoever is killed defending his wealth is a martyr, and whoever is killed defending his family is a martyr, and whoever is killed defending his honor is a martyr.
Exactly. Meaning that when you commit a crime and the ruler enforces the law on you, for example, he lashes your back as a punishment, which serves as an individual deterrence for you so that you don't violate others again, and it also serves as a public deterrence because when people see that the state enforces punishment, they too refrain from doing the same crime. So you're supposed to listen and obey and accept this punishment without saying a word. When you violate the law and park your car in a no parking zone, the ruler imposes a fine on you to establish order through you and enforce it on everyone. In this case, listen, obey, and pay the fine without objecting. But when the ruler suddenly wakes up one day and decides to raid people's homes, take their livelihoods and the livelihoods of their children, just like that, out of nowhere, without any right, you tell me, obey Allah, obey the Messenger, and those in authority among you. What does the command of Allah the Exalted and the command of His Messenger, peace be upon him, have to do with the command of an oppressor like this? I really don't get it.
They take nothing from Islam except obey those in authority, obey those in authority. Why do you skip obey Allah first and obey the Messenger? Why is it only that part that stands out to you? When you're told obey those in authority, you should also tell them Allah didn't give those in authority an unconditional obedience. Allah said, obey Allah and obey the messenger. But he didn't repeat the order to obey before the attribute of those in authority. He didn't say, and obey those in authority, to indicate that obedience to those in authority stems from obedience to Allah and His servant.
The matter doesn't need further arguing. Anyway, my friend, the Second Gulf War broke out when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait on August 2nd, 1990. With him taking over a neighboring country, Saddam was just a stone's throw away from Saudi Arabia. So here, King Fahd bin Abdul Aziz rushed to America and told them,
protect us, protect us. Protect us, brother. Why won't you protect us?
Yeah, why won't you protect us? Then the Saudi scholars went to King Fahd and said to him, stop right there, be careful, what are you trying to do? King Fahd said, what's your problem, what do you want? They said, no, be careful. According to Islamic law, it is not permissible for a Muslim to seek help from a non-Muslim to fight his Muslim brother. King Fahd said, oh boy, how do we get out of this pickle? And that's when Rabi ibn Hadi al-Madkhali stepped in with his book, which was like a kiss of life, and they pretty much called him Madkhali because Dakhal, he entered with his book when the king was between a rock and a hard place. The book's title was Stopping the Aggression of the Atheists and the Ruling of Seeking Help from Non-Muslims to Fight Them. Even before we open the book, it's obvious that the author gave it his best efforts and permitted seeking help from non-Muslims, fish inhabiting the deep sea, the entire sea world, Martians, and the whole Milky Way. And the publication date of the book, as written right in front of you, was September 23rd, 1990, which means that the book was fully completed in just a month and a half after Saddam entered Kuwait. So writing, printing, publishing was all done in cook it, boil it, serve it kind of way. What about those other sheikhs? Off they went straight to the detention centers. We brought in the Americans, set up our military bases, and everything went smoothly like a knife through butter, just the way they wanted. And here, my friends, the state set its sights on that oh-so-sweet ideology. One guy snitches on his colleagues, while the other pushes forward the state's agendas, and both of them wear the same attires and even speak the state's language. So they were rewarded with unlimited support, and both were living safely and moving freely. The other schools of thought were arrested and banned. It was the state's subtle way to inform people that if they wanted religion, sure, they could go ahead and choose, but only from the state's menu. If they are happy with it, then everything will be fine, and no one will bother them. But as for the other menus, don't even think about touching them. Al-Jami and Al-Madkhali students and his close friends saw that this path was safe and the atmosphere had a certain appeal. So they took the foundations, refined them, built on them, and developed the ideology even further. And under their supervision, my friend, many students graduated from nearly every part of the Arab and Islamic world, because these students were already going to Saudi Arabia seeking knowledge. Yes, people naturally go to the cradle of revelation and the message to learn their religion. And just like any epidemic, this disease has spread throughout the years and gradually become rampant across Arab and Islamic countries. And keep in mind, and to be fair, there isn't actually a sect or group officially called Madkhalism or Jamiism. It's not an organization and they don't have a leadership structure or hierarchy or anything like that. It's simply an ideology, a current of thought that emerged and existed during that period, and it was heavily funded and supported until it became like a germ that spread and its harm became far-reaching. It evolved to the point that you're about to see now.
Imagine that a ruler, whether he is a king or a president, goes live on TV for 30 minutes and publicly commits adultery and drinks alcohol. You still shouldn't oppose him in a way that incites people against him. And he witnessed him committing any act forbidden by Allah, drinking alcohol, adultery, stealing, usury, or any other major sins. Do not withdraw obedience.
And the Prophet, peace be upon him, commanded us not to rebel against the rulers, to remain under the authority of the ruler and under his banner. So even if the ruler in a country permits the sale of alcohol or prostitution, then the burden of that is upon him. We have been commanded to listen and obey.
The ruler should never be publicly denounced, nor in gatherings, and his policies cannot be opposed.
Did you catch that? Under the authority of the ruler, but pay attention to the expression used. Not under the care of the ruler, for example, or under his laws and guidance. Oh no, under his stick, you naughty one who doesn't listen. And that's it, my friend. Praise be to Allah. We're closing shop. That's the entire religion. You heard, you obeyed, and you didn't withdraw for a second from obedience. So heaven is yours, inshaAllah. You performed Siyam, Salah, and even Hajj, paid your zakat, but then you insinuated just a little insinuation of disobeying. It's straight to hell, you terrible person shall be tossed among hell's dogs.
The question is, does obeying the ruler count as the obedience of one created being to another, or obedience of a created being to Allah? Of course, obeying the ruler is obedience to Allah. If the ruler commands employees to commit to their work even without wages, then they have to. Yes, without a salary, not just reducing their wages, they have to obey with no wages at all.
Islamic law states that the ruler's position and authority cannot be contested, and no one can compete against the ruler for them. Instead, the ruler shall remain in authority and a position of power.
The problem, my friends, isn't the copy-paste approach. It's the constant repetition of the same pathetic rhetoric in every speech, as if the whole world revolves around the ruler, obedience to the ruler, oil, sugar, and flour, and that's it. No, the problem goes far beyond that. It extends to the harm they intentionally inflict on others. It's not enough for them to spread and promote this false ideology among Muslims. No, they still actively snitch on those who disagree with them. It's as if the hatred in their hearts won't be satisfied unless they hurt others. May Allah protect us all.
As for me, I've opposed the traitors from the Muslim Brotherhood and the agents who are now in prison. Tell me, name one I've opposed who is still outside of prison now.
Oh, Al-Fawzan.
Just wait, hold on, what time will tell.
The account Detained Opinions in Saudi Arabia on Twitter reported that it has confirmed the arrest of Al-Fawzan by the Saudi authorities.
So you're saying obedience to the ruler? Okay, fine man, we'll obey the ruler. But now you want Sheikh Al-Fawzan to obey you too? Why would he do that? This way you want him to obey the one who obeys the ruler too, not just obey the ruler himself. And then you go and boast about it live on air in front of everyone. You are so proud that you harmed someone else. Minutes later, in another clip, you find this same man crying out of reverence. People share it and forward it on WhatsApp without even realizing the hypocrisy of people like this guy.
The ruler is always right. Even if he decided to execute a third of the population so that the remaining two-thirds may be saved, then Islamic legislator would permit it.
This is a petty world where we play in that we corrupt. You who are planning to travel abroad from this country, you who are planning a vacation, you who are planning to buy a luxury car, render for the sake of Allah.
Render something to Allah, my friend. Don't you have anything to give to Allah? But you just said that the ruler can beat my back and take my money. So what's left to be offered to Allah? Just render whatever you can give, man. Give and be among the doers of good. He beat your back, turn the other cheek and let him hit you some more. He took your money. It doesn't matter. Borrow some or start a savings pool with your mother-in-law and go donate to the ruler's fund. But if you don't have your health and you don't have money, then just stay completely quiet. Let's continue listening to the preacher. I'm sorry, Maulana. Go ahead.
I started out with about 6 million and reached 23 million, which I lost completely. I was left with only 70,000 riyals. Then, maybe months later, God opened doors for your brother. And I don't know the secret behind this opening.
You don't know the secret behind this opening? Seriously? Just log into the opening app. No, I mean the Banks app, and you'll find the name of the Wali Al-Amr glowing right next to the transfer number. Most of those videos you saw until now were from the past, and I used them a few years ago. Now, the new part, the one you haven't heard, and the reason the Zionists started paying attention to this movement and openly expressing their admiration of its ideology, even sending them sweet flattery, I think this part is self-explanatory and needs no commentary or theorizing, so here you go.
This is jihad in the path of Satan, and don't be fooled today by the glorification of what's happening in Palestine.
What's happening in the world is not your concern. It's not the concern of individuals and people. It is the concern of the rulers. Scholars clarify rulings, and rulers decide what they see fit. Whatever decisions they make, regardless of whether it is right or wrong, that's not your business.
The Hamas government who rules in Gaza, it broke the covenant and agreement. So from this perspective, what are the people of Hamas considered? They're Kharijits and treaty violators.
The terrorist Hamas movement and those who support it have now become what? They're like the Muslim Brotherhood, Kharijits, Sururis, and so on. You could say whatever you want about them.
Abu Ubaidah, strive with the Sunnah if you are truthful. This is greater than striving with swords. Strive with the Sunnah. Strive with the Sunnah. Abu Ubaidah, strive with the Sunnah.
They said the scholars do not denounce wrongdoings. Why is this wrongdoing and that wrongdoing happening? The musical concerts here and there and so and so. Whoever says this is ignorant and deviant. Whoever says this is why? Because it is not the scholars' duty to stop wrongdoings, folks.
Hamas, this the terrorist group. This Hamas is an agent of Iran.
The solution is the removal of Hamas, the Hamas entity, and Hamas members. That is, they should be completely eliminated, because Hamas obstructs the peace process and does not want an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital.
Muhammad Aman al-Jami passed away, and Rabi al-Madkhali is now old and in his final days, and the fruit of their efforts is that these are preaching in the mosques of Muslims, living safely while others are imprisoned in detention centers and jails. And regarding the question from the Zionists at the beginning of the episode, whether the Madkhalis are their allies, the answer is yes. As for you, you might be now wondering about the reasons why these shallow and superficial people are replacing those with knowledge and stature. The answer lies in an American plan that was set in 2017, as stated by Rex Tillerson, the former U.S. Secretary of State, during a discussion of the budget of the State of Department. He's telling Congress where their money is going, meaning what it's being spent on. So listen for yourself to what they're spending it on.
One of the elements that we are visiting with them about, and they have already taken steps, the Saudis, is to publish new textbooks that go into the schools that are in the mosque around the world. These textbooks are to replace textbooks that are out there today that do advocate extreme Wahhabism viewpoints around the justification for violence. We've asked that they not just publish the new textbooks, we've asked that they retrieve the existing textbooks so we get those back. That's just one example. This center is going to have a very broad range from social media to broadcast to how young imams are trained in the theological centers. And we are working with them today with the establishment of the new center. What are the measures that we will hold ourselves accountable to? That is one of the charges that the State Department is working with the Saudis and others.
The blindest of the blind told us 9/10 of faith lies in obeying the ruler's commands, even if he prays with a bottle of alcohol in his hands, even if he kills young children, even if he commits crimes or betrays, even if he sells the nation. I'm confused. Then the Pharaoh should be the beloved of the Rahman, and heaven would be in the hands of Haman, and faith should come from the Shaitan. Then why was the Quran revealed? Was it to guide us to a miswak, to erase from our minds the heresy of toothpaste? Or to tailor robes that cover only half the calves of men? Was it revealed for this then? Certainly not. I believe it was only revealed for these reasons. To forbid the oppression of human beings, to forbid the killing of human beings. And that's it, believers. And Assalamu alaikum.